Hello partners. Today we wanted to expose some of the reasons why we think and reason that the Earth is flat and stationary, so we are going to see them. The first one is the reason why we started to investigate. The issue is because we could not see objects, or mountains, or cities that are officially below the curvature, being also aligned, straight and perfect to our line of sight. As much as they apply an index of refraction, even an impossible percentage of gravity, we only have to apply trigonometry or Pythagoras with the official measurements that they give us of the Earth. Light has multiple characteristics and properties such as reflection, refraction, etc., but it always slows down and decays when it passes through a medium. It does not make objects rise as they want us to believe, and even less so that they ascend kilometers and are perfectly aligned, without any distortion in front of us. There is no scientific experiment, no scale or laboratory that makes our visual look like objects that are at a lower level than the observed. Reason 2. The horizon is always at our eye level, no matter how much we cannot see it, whether we are at sea level, on top of a mountain, in an airplane 10 kilometers away, even in altitude cameras launched with helium balloons that reach 36 kilometers in height. We always see the horizon straight and at our visual level. That is why they have to use cameras with a fisheye lens to deform the image and show us a spherical land where the objects that the camera itself is also curving. Of course. Reason 3. Fluid mechanics tells us that all fluids always seek their level, including water. Of course, it does not bend at rest. This is why liquid and an air bubble are used in measuring instruments called levels. Also, the sea level is always the same. There is no experiment on any scale or laboratory that shows water stuck to the outside of its spherical container. And even less, there is no movement, of course. Reason 4. The compass always marks us the magnetic North Pole, even from the so-called southern hemisphere, in which it should mark the magnetic South Pole if we live in a sphere as they want us to believe. Reason 5. The gyroscope. The gyroscope of an airplane never turns when going from one hemisphere to another remains the same, nor do the angles turn in Australia, of course. Add here also that an airplane also does not correct and lower its nose as it travels around the sphere. Even if they tell us that the plane corrects it by itself. What's more, at most they raise the nose to better accommodate the air below, and thus better plan your flight. By the way, we call the plane airplane for some reason. Reason 6. Aircraft flights are much more consistent on a flat, stationary, circular Earth than on a sphere. Since they are always done in a straight line, which is the shortest distance between 2 points. As we all know. Although they officially justify those tours without much sense. That the planes do for economic and commercial reasons, and not because there is a flight like the one from Santiago de Chile Shinde. And that doesn't quite fit due to the times. In Glasson's projection. Let's ignore the many flight contradictions that exist on official sphere-based maps. A clear example was found in that emergency landing in Alaska, while the plane covered the Pacific route. Furthermore, we already know that the Glasson model is an azimuth projection, and that surely the distribution of the continents, especially on the perimeter, is not exact. And without forgetting the jet streams that planes can catch, exceeding the speed of sound in some cases, and thus greatly shortening the flight hours. And let's not forget that the way to measure the speed at which airplanes fly is more than controversial when they are off the ground. Reason 7. There are no real photos of the Earth from space. All magnificent and not so magnificent digital compositions retouched, cut and pasted with computer programs such as Photoshop. If they could go out into space, there would be millions of real photos of Earth, both from comfortable SS telescopes on satellites. Reason 8. There are also no recordings of the Earth in real time, from space where we can see people waving or kangaroos upside down. Reason 9. There are no real photographs of the stars taken from the SS or from the thousands of satellites. They are always digital compositions, always with the excuse that the image would be burned by starlight in a vacuum. I guess setting the camera to get so much light in isn't an option for them. Reason 10. There is not a single experiment that demonstrates at any scale a minimum of heliocentric system with spheres or bodies attracted by their mass and suspended in a supposed vacuum by gravitational attraction. None. They can only simulate similar things with electromagnetism. Of course, it is what really exists. Otherwise, everything falls to the floor. Reason 11. There is no scientific experiment that shows you the movement of the Earth, and we are almost in 2019. They all failed, although they do not want to speak or interpret them at their convenience. The Michelson with Gail Michelson, with Morley, Iris failure even Jack is worth mentioning. Ergo, if the experiment that tried to show the movement of the Earth is negative, it means that the Earth does not move. Many cling to believe that Foucault's pendulum demonstrates something, the one that they lead us all to see from a young age to indoctrinate them like sheep in centrism. Of course, they do not explain the gimbal system to place on top so that it never stops moving, or the alias effect. What happens? The eclipses of the sun? But hey, apart from that, how is a pendulum going to show that the Earth moves, no matter how high it is or no matter how hard they try to isolate it from the ground? Ask someone who works in construction to explain the plumb line technique they use as the vertical equivalent of the compass level. Reason 12. Regarding satellites, add that there are no satellites in outer space for several reasons. At most, they exist with super-pressurized helium balloons at 70-80 kilometers high, or also, as they did in World War II with the Lorentz system. But well, why are there no satellites? Because communications go by cable and by antennas that repeat and amplify the signal, not by satellite. The airplanes also enter a standstill, and do not control them. That is why they have to follow a marked route and speed, for example, the Malaysia Airlines plane, which disappeared. Another example would be that there would be millions of actual photos of the Earth from space. And also real photos without staring. As we said before, another reason for not believing the existence of satellites, as we are told, is that the countries that threaten each other with launching nuclear rockets when they launch satellites into space must be very friendly, and give the coordinates of all of them and all the time so that they do not collide with each other, nor with the IS of course. Once again, a story, or a novel like the one from 1084, make us believe that there are two blocks. Reason 13. That the sun and the moon look the same size is an impossible coincidence. As much as they officially tell us that this happens by coincidence, since the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, it is also 400 times greater away. Reason 14. That we always see the same face of the moon is another impossible coincidence, no matter how much official science tells us that the moon takes the same time to rotate once on itself as to go around the Earth. Reason 15. All the stars in the sky have always rotated and revolve around the pole star, as we see it every night and as recorded even in the oldest calendars that exist, as it will defend. In Egypt treated of the year 50 before Christ, although there are many people who date it much earlier. You can clearly see how Ursa Minor is in the center. Reason 16. You just have to see the perfect and precious drawing that today called planets draw around our Earth, in a geocentric position that also includes in proportions of pi and phi. Nothing to do with madness. The geocentric or centric, as the ruling party likes to call their theoretical models today, and far removed from all empirical science. Here we saw the one that I already drew almost centuries ago, a geocentric mathematician and astronomer, by the way, whose name was also sucked with the Cassini probe, just as they did with Tesla recently. Reason 17. It is impossible that the millions of megalithic constructions that exist throughout the Earth, dolmens, menhirs, crumble, pyramids continue to mark with total precision and accuracy the days of solstices and equinoxes, either with the projected shadow or with the sun's ray entering through a hole or lighting the cave, continues to mark those same days after thousands and thousands of years. It is impossible with the official equinoctial precession movement of the spinning top, plus the cancellation, and so many other movements. That movement is not sustained, and therefore, neither does the sphere. Thanks to all those ancient cultures and civilizations that left us written in the best possible way that knowledge with megalithic constructions that cannot destroy or hide both the knowledge of time, and that we inhabit a flat and immobile Earth. There are many more arguments and proofs that we could include, but these seem to us the most obvious and easy to understand and explain, without forgetting those harnesses, cables and bubbles that astronauts can see or sense. Although this does not imply an evident proof that the Earth does not move, but rather it invites us to reflect on why it happens. And as a final reflection, just add the nonsense that already supposes for us to think that right now, while we are making this video, We are inside a sphere rotating at supersonic speed on itself and around a sun that in turn everything is moving at more speed, together with the stars themselves, through a dark, infinite, expanding universe, full of black hole dangers, full of masses and giant bodies that are attracted to each other by gravitational attraction, colliding with each other and creating a chaos within an empty space. And then they want to bend space and time. Amazing. Until next time?
But they teach it to the king.